Okay, let's just dive straight into the honest truth here. Bird phobia? It barely even exists as its own dedicated research topic. But you know what? It really doesn't need to, because a fear of birds is a specific animal phobia, which actually makes it one of the absolute best studied and most treatable fears out there. If you've got a 4 to 14-year-old at home who is terrified of birds, you are in the exact right place for this explainer. So, while we might not have a massive clinical trial just for, say, seagulls or pigeons, the broader evidence base for animal phobias is incredibly robust. And the really good news, these fears respond remarkably fast to exposure. We can totally borrow proven strategies from the clinical literature that work just as effectively for a pigeon waddling around a park as they do for a dog or a spider. All right, part 1, the bird phobia truth. Let's look at what the clinical reality actually means for your kid, how common this really is, and, well, what happens if we just cross our fingers and do nothing. To put things into perspective, between 5 and 10% of all youth are affected by specific phobias. That is a massive number of kids. So if your child is struggling with this, please know you are absolutely not alone. In fact, research from the Lancet Psychology highlights that animal fears are literally among the most common of all these specific fears globally. Now, it's super tempting to just hope they'll grow out of it, right? But the hard truth is, these fears do not reliably fade on their own. Animal phobias typically start in childhood and, unfortunately, they run a chronic course if left untreated. You know, skip in the park because there might be ducks there. It feels like a quick fix today, but that avoidance is actively reinforcing the fear over time. It's like feeding a monster. Moving on to part 2, why children fear birds. I mean, it can feel completely irrational in the moment when a harmless seagull eyeing a stray French fry causes an absolute full-blown meltdown. But the science actually gives us a very clear biological explanation for this intense reaction. So you're probably asking, why birds specifically? I mean, why not fear a harmless static object instead of a tiny little creature just hopping along the sidewalk? Well, the answer lies in something called evolutionary preparedness. Basically, human brains are hardwired to quickly learn to fear animals in order to keep us safe. Our ancient ancestors had to rapidly identify potential threats in the wild, and that deeply embedded survival mechanism, yeah, it is still firing on all cylinders in your child's developing brain today. And birds, they are basically a perfect storm for this primal response. They make these sudden, jerky movements, they flap their wings unexpectedly, and they often swoop right in close for food. But here's an absolutely crucial trigger: vicarious learning. A single frightening encounter, or even just watching a scared adult react, can instantly condition this fear through what researchers call the vicarious pathway. It happens in the blink of an eye. Okay, part 3, the 3-hour phobia cure. Let's look at a pretty groundbreaking solution from the UK's Aspect trial that has completely changed how we think about treating these specific childhood fears. So, traditional cognitive behavioral therapy has always been the gold standard, right? But it usually takes weeks or even months to complete, and let's be real, getting an appointment can be a nightmare. However, this massive randomized trial showed that a single, roughly 3-hour one-session treatment works just as well. It uses the exact same core principles of graduated exposure, but condenses the whole shebang into one highly focused block of time. The takeaway here is that targeted, rapid exposure is a clinically proven, highly effective cure. When researchers measured outcomes at a 6-month follow-up, the kids who did just that single 3-hour session maintained their bravery. They improved just as much as the kids who spent months in multi-session therapy. I mean, that is an absolute game changer for families. Which brings us to part 4, your graduated exposure plan. The best part is, you don't need a lab coat to apply these clinical principles. Here is exactly how you can build a highly practical game plan right at home. Think of this like building a ladder to bravery. Step 1, you just start with simple photos of birds. Keep it low stakes. Step 2, move up to watching videos of birds and make sure the sound is actually turned up. Then, step 3, observe a real bird, together, from a safe distance. The golden rule here is that you only move up the ladder once your child's anxiety at the current step has dropped significantly. No rushing. And that leads right into part 5, your crucial parent role. Because, listen, none of this works without you. You are the absolute anchor in this entire exercise, and how you behave completely dictates how your child processes the exposure. Remember how we talked about fear being learned by watching adults? Well, that means you modeling calm, relaxed behavior isn't just nice to have. It's an actual evidence-based intervention. If a bird flutters by and you tense up or, rush to shield your kid, you're validating the threat. But if you stay completely relaxed alongside them, you are actively rewiring their brain to understand they are entirely safe. Now, a really quick but important caveat here. If this fear meaningfully limits where your child will go, like they are refusing to go to school or they're completely avoiding being outdoors, please go see a professional. Mental health experts are specifically trained to guide you through this exact clinical exposure process safely and effectively. But for those of you managing this at home, the Fear Me Not app is an absolutely incredible tool. It gamifies this whole graduated exposure process. Basically, it turns those animal fears into step-by-step bravery wins through play, putting all this robust scientific research right into your child's hands in a way that feels super empowering and fun. So I want to leave you with our empowering mantra for this explainer. Don't calm down, conquer. Accommodating and avoiding just feeds the phobia, while exposure is what actually cures it. Step up, model calm bravery, and help them take their world back. The only question left is, what will your child's first step toward bravery look like tomorrow?